I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel Bookworm Couple. Today we're going to be talking about the second book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, Crown of Midnight. How long has it been since you've read this one?
Was it last April or last April?
You said you did a reread semi-recently, so I'm assuming
No, not
you read
Throne
them
of
all?
Glass. I did Akatar recently.
Oh, okay. My
so
mistake.
then it would have been about a year and a half.
How well would you say you remember it?
These books, not as well as others because there are so many of them, but I remember the big moments.
I'm glad you explained what means. Anyway, I'm actually really excited to talk about this book today, which I don't think I expressed to you before. I'm very excited to talk about this book because I just think in almost every single way it is a step better than the last one, which is, I think, what you want anytime you're going to be reading the series.
Yeah.
Everything about this book, I think, improved upon the last one, which is as good as you can ask for anything you're reading, I think. So I am very excited to get into a conversation about this. So for anyone out there who read the first one, if you liked it, you're going to love the second. If you're not sure on the first one, I highly recommend you give the second one a chance because I think it all really tightens up and just becomes better overall.
Very much how I felt when I read them too. I was so excited to read them because I was so excited for more Sarah J. Maas content that I would have read it regardless, but I felt very similar to the second. So do you want to start off with a brief synopsis?
Yeah, it's going to be tough because I was thinking about this right before we started recording, and the farther we get into the series, the harder that is going to be. So if you have not read the first Throne of Glass
Especially
book,
do without spoilers.
Yeah, I don't think I can do this second one without spoilers, so if you have not read the first book in Throne of Glass, stop watching now, because there will be spoilers, even just in this spoiler-free synopsis for the second book. So, this continues the story of Celaena. She has won the tournament, she has become the king's champion, and she is taking care of his dirty laundry, I guess, killing his enemies, essentially. So this story follows how she deals with that and the consequences of how she deals with it. It also expands more on the lore and the budding questions she has about magic and the word marks with Nehemia and everything that was happening at the end of the book with Elena and the royal line of the kingdom and that ghost there. And that's all I can really say without going into any spoilers, I think. I think that's pretty good.
I feel like that was an intriguing synopsis. I would want to read the book so that, what?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going for.
That's the point.
That work?
Yeah, that's
Great.
a synopsis. That's why they write. They hire people to do that.
So that's a brief synopsis of what the book is. Going forward, spoiler warning, as we're going to be discussing some more details about this second book. So if you have not read it yet, I highly recommend that you pause now and come back to this video
Read
later.
It. Come back. We'll go on the journey together.
Yeah, it'll be beautiful.
To start, favorite characters.
Favorite characters. All right. Well, this is very important to me. This is one of the most important parts of this book to me is that Mort has entered, and
people are gonna be like, "Who's Mort?"
Mort is the best character in this book. I feel so seen. He is finally
Mort.
a point of view character that I can relate to.
Crabby.
He shows up. It's just brilliant, the scene that he shows up in, because I'm sure a bunch of people don't know who Mort is. They've probably forgotten. I don't know what happens to Mort going forward, and people who do remember him are like, that dumb magic door knocker that's very annoying. I love Mort, because the scene where she meets him, she's coming down to talk to the ghost of an ancient queen, and she is suddenly interrupted by a magic-speaking door knocker, and she freaks out. Oh my god, magic, how could it possibly be real? As if she's not going to talk to the magical embodiment of someone who passed on a long time ago. And Mort says that to her. And that solidified my love for Mort. Also, the fact that he's just kind of a sarcastic dick the whole time did amuse me as well. But yes, so I love Mort. I love Mort deeply. But I also, in general, jokes aside, I do think, as I said, I think everything in this book really kind of improved. And I think a big part of that was the secondary cast. In the first book, the point of view characters were great. I really liked Nehemia, but most of the secondary cast I kind of could take or leave. Duke Parrington, Lady Caltaine, basically all of the people in the tournament were kind of meh. Cain was there, but you knew why Cain was. There's no mystery to him. There's really, I really loved the secondary cast. I thought they were much more engaging. I thought the characters that already existed that were in the secondary cast got more time to shine. I thought the introduction of newer characters like Mort, yes, but also Archer, I thought was very compelling. Bobby Yellowlegs, which I thought was the craziest name, but loved her. I think the secondary cast was much more fleshed out this time. I was much more interested in them and their storylines, which was a huge improvement over the first, where I really only cared about the very main characters. Even the King, to an extent in this one. Not that we got much from him, but we got more about him that I really, really enjoyed.
I'd be interested to delve more into Sarah J. Maas's journey, because from my memory, the first book was like an online, like a blog, essentially, that she wrote. And
I was Googling this. Yeah. She wrote the first one and posted it on a fanfic site.
There it is.
And eventually it got very popular, and then, or at least she posted the first few chapters of it or something, and then eventually took it down. She started writing it, I do believe, when she was like 16 or something.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think it was published until she was in her early 20s, but... Yeah.
Well, because it's interesting to see, like, of that first one, and even just the jump from the first to the second, the difference in her writing, I think, is pretty massive. And then...
Yes.
And again, I've read the series and all of her books thus far, and to see the journey of her writing the whole way is really cool, and I'm excited for you to see if you notice that journey too.
I'm sure I will. I mean, I already did. The prose is absolutely better. I think it flows a lot better. I think also, I mean, I know I talked in the last video about my personal preference for not having exclamation marks in inner monologues. And it's not in this book, really, that I noticed at all.
I would have never noticed that.
It's just, well, because it's a personal tick of mine that it kind of takes me out. I'm just like, ooh, okay. But
I guess I just think very expressively.
And so, that's just a personal thing and not necessarily an actual critique, but I was thrilled that was gone too.
Yeah,
I think that the prose absolutely improved from the first to the second. I think you can see that she's growing as a writer. And it makes sense because it's a book where she's not locked into the interior of a castle with her main character as essentially a prisoner. While her character is still an indentured servant at this point, she can go outside, she can interact with people, her past can come back to her,
that's a big part,
and she can start building out her world in ways that are meaningful, as opposed to just giving us little hints because we can't go anywhere else. And then at the end, just blow it all up and leave the continent. So that's cool too.
I forgot that was this book until I was like, at first I was like, was that in the first book that everything gets blown up? No,
it's the second.
It's a slow roll with this series.
I will say,
in a good way.
Yes, I will say I am thrilled with the amount of world building that was done. I found it all very interesting. I found everything about the word gates, the word keys, all of that stuff I loved. I found it fascinating. I love world building in general in fantasy books. It's one of my favorite things about them.
I cannot wait for you to get to her later stuff. You're gonna just love it.
Yeah, and I found it all to be extremely compelling. And again, like I said about the King, we learn more about him. All of the stuff underneath in the catacombs with the obsidian and the clock tower and where his power is coming from, it makes him more compelling than just being like, I am a faceless evil whose name I quite frankly couldn't tell you. He's just the King. I don't know if it's been mentioned in the book. Do you know the King's name?
No.
Yeah, he's just the bad king in my mind, and that's fine. But learning more about him and about how he found the word key. I'm probably saying this wrong.
No, I think so.
Word?
I think it's word.
Anyway,
I said word in my head.
The word key in the tomb years ago when he was young. And, and how he started coming to power that way and how long it's been since he's been starting to have these plans. I was like, great, we get something on this guy other than he's just really bad. But yeah, so, and then speaking of more world building, the revelations we have about Celaena's past, which I could not be more thrilled that the secret is out, because it was really not a secret. It was very obvious. As soon as they dropped the name in like one of the first chapters of the book, they're like, this resistance is trying to rebuild Terrasen, and they're rallying behind the heir of Terrasen, Aelin Galathynius. Aelin Galathynius. And I went, okay, so that's who Celaena is.
Well, and they also
finally
like,
we have a
18.
name. Yeah, finally we have a name. I was like, so this is Celaena, because we know she's royalty. I will say, and this is probably stupid of me, I did not know she was Fae. And I found that to be, I was like, oh, cool, I'm surprised.
All right,
but when she, like, blew up with magic after going through the portal, which we will talk about later, because I thought that entire section was very cool, but also hilarious. I was like, oh, cool, she's Fae. But when she blew up with magic, I was like, yes, obviously, we know she has magic.
Yeah,
we know she's royal. We know she's royalty because...
You're reading
she's
a
just like,
fantasy
I can't think about these things. And I'm like, okay. So I'm really glad that secret is out in the open, because now we don't have to waste time pretending that's not the case, or like that it's a secret at all. I do wonder why she didn't tell Dorian. I loved Dorian in this book.
All right, I was about to ask.
him.
Okay, so Team Dorian, Team Kale.
Right now, I mean, Dorian is not in the picture. I also think Kale did nothing wrong, and one of my only major problems with the book was the sequence in which Nehemia died and Selena tried to kill Kale for it. I understand, and I knew that there needed to be, in a romance book, a reason for the couple to not stay together when it's book 2 of 7, and that's just something you can't avoid knowing when you are reading something that you know is a long series. You know that something is going to be, there's going to be some minor misunderstanding or something, and they're going to break up for 5 books, whatever. But it felt like a lot. And yes, she's damaged and she's, traumatized, and there's a lot of things going into it, but I did think it was so over the top.
Yeah.
That she not only was like, screw you, Kale, I hate you, she tried to murder him immediately when he barely didn't. He just didn't tell her one piece of information.
I think that just shows Selena's character. Like, I think that is just like, she's a fiery lady, and I think that, and this is probably also just coming from me reading the books of, of course, gross exaggeration, but as it's such a tell of her character. Like, I think that is so, she's a 0 to 1,000 kind of a gal. Yeah, no, I understand. I understand that feeling of that. That makes sense. I think it feels very like her.
Okay, sure.
I also think it's so hard to talk about this book without judging it from
my guess, and this is a guess I'm making in video 2, she's going to end up with Kale. That's my guess. At the end of the series.
How good is my poker face?
I don't know, because I really don't know if she's going to or not. But that is my current guess. I think that's where this is all going to lead. Watch it be someone who doesn't enter until book 4. But whatever. That's my guess right now. Maybe I'll make that every video. I'll make a guess who I think she's going to end up with. But anyway,
cool.
I think that the scene as a whole and the reason for them not being able to be together works. I just thought that in my opinion, insane overreaction, though, in response to an unbelievably traumatizing experience
and
a graphic
someone who she
scene.
felt was like her only friend, her first friend, really. Like,
yeah.
to have her be murdered and someone that you were with vulnerably the night it all happened is a huge blow. And so I could imagine that would lead to a crazy reaction. Also dependent on your personality.
Yeah, maybe as the books go on, I will look back on this and agree that I think it was in character. I think that the reaction was so wild to me that it took me out of the moment and made me think, this is crazy. This is, like, absolutely ridiculous. I don't believe that she would suddenly turn on the person that she's just, like, decide she's in love with and attempt to blindly murder them. But that's just me, and maybe
that's just not what you
that's
do.
That's just me.
You know?
Maybe I will look back on this and change my mind, but that's how I feel about it now.
No,
I think that I also think that without that, the scene could have played almost exactly the same. She could have hit him. She could have done anything.
Sure.
She could have not tried to fully murder him. But then we do get a chance to see Dorian use his magic, and boy, do I love our boy Dorian. The boy mage. What a great guy. I loved everything about Dorian in this book. I thought of course he's very sad, and he's a sad boy about Selena not being in love with him. And I love how many times he lets her go in this book. It almost started becoming a running joke to me. I don't think it was supposed to be funny, but I think he closed his eyes and let her go 3 times in this book, and it did make me laugh. But yes, he does, and that's great. I think the fact that Dorian has magic is so great. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that Dorian was like, oh no, my crappy younger brother who is an absolute monster might have it too. I need to learn how to use it so I can save him, even though I don't like him, was endearing.
Yeah.
The fact that he went to Bobby Yellowlegs alone and thought she didn't know who he was really funny. I thought everything he did, I was like, I'm rooting for you, Dorian. You can do this.
Adorable.
I also kind of thought Dorian and Nehemia might end up together.
I thought that too when I read it. I was like, oh.
I did not. I will say this. I did not expect her to die.
No,
especially
book.
because I know I read this book. I know I read at least 2 of them, and
But
all I remembered from reading these books was that I liked Nehemia, and I apparently didn't remember that she died.
You're like
erased
it from your brain.
She's not dead. Surely she's not dead. Like when they said she was dead, I was like, well, that can't be right, because I would have remembered that. And then they went and saw her, like, mutilated body, and I was like,
she's very
definite, not dead? Maybe? Maybe she's somehow still alive. And then, and let's talk about this now, opening the portal to the underworld, or whatever it is in this universe, in the castle, which I was just like, boy, I don't think I've ever read a book or seen any sort of media where this is a good idea. And so I was like, well, right, let's buckle in, because this is going to be intense. And then her ghost came, and I was like, okay, I guess she is really dead. There is a thing about this book, about these books so far, and I'm interested to see how Sarah J. Maas grows as a writer in this, and whether or not this is intentional, or maybe I'm overthinking it. But sometimes it feels like she's trying to force mystery when it's very obvious what's going on. For example, in the very first chapter of this book, thank goodness it's very short, or maybe it's the prologue, I don't actually remember, Selena is about to murder someone for the king in her role as the king's champion. And it was apparent to me, even in the 2 or 3 page chapter, as it blacked out before she murdered this person, that I went, okay, so she's not killing the people the king sends her to kill. Mm-hmm. There is a scene later in the book, right before Nehemia's death, where it just says the queen and someone else. They don't mention either of their names, but it is obviously Nehemia in that secret room talking to the queen and basically deciding she's going to be killed. Also everything with Selena being like, I'm just Selena, and even though she's very obviously some form of royalty from the very beginning. So I don't know if that's just the twists aren't really twists to me.
They're not twisting.
They're not really twisting. I mean, there are some cool things that happen, but it seems sometimes the setup is extremely obvious, and I don't know if this is something that Sarah J. Maas was a very young writer at this point, and that's just something that she was not super adept at, or maybe I'm just overthinking all of this.
And also, I think we read a lot of
that's true.
Books, so I think there's
true.
Probably a lot of things we're already going in looking for that we're like, okay, called it.
That's a good point. That is very possible. Or maybe the whole point is that you're supposed to know anyway, and she doesn't care. She's just writing it this way, and that's the point. But I did find it interesting on those specific points. But again, I am very glad that the big secret is out, because I don't really want to waste any more time of her being like, I can't think about those things. Which I'm like, okay,
let's think
about them now. Okay, so that was a tangent, but back to what we were talking about with the entire scene with the portal.
She opens the portal. She steps in,
and she's a fae, which I actually didn't see coming, which was very cool. I also do love that, her aunt or her grandmother is Maeve. Yeah. Maeve, and Queen Mab hath been with you is in this, which I was like, oh, that's fun.
You're gonna love these next books.
Queen Mab hath been with you.
And Fleetfoot. We haven't talked about Fleetfoot at all.
Fleetfoot's a dog.
We love Fleetfoot.
Yeah, Fleetfoot's great.
Bless Fleetfoot.
I also thought that Fleetfoot was going to die, and I was like, whoa. The balls it would take to kill the dog in this book.
The world would revolt.
No, truly. It makes sense because she couldn't bring the dog with her to this new kingdom she's going to. But I really thought she might kill the dog. Yeah. And I was really I thought Fleetfoot had the strongest plot armor possible just by nature of being a good boy. But I was a little bit stressed there for a little bit. But yes, Fleetfoot does rock. Fleetfoot is very brave. I don't really understand why she didn't tell Dorian the whole truth at the end.
Yeah, that's always a thing that whenever I read anything, then I'm like, oh, why are we not communicating?
Yes, but that's just the way things work.
Well, especially since Dorian obviously is magic.
Yes, because Dorian has magic, and he opened up to her about magic.
Beyond having a relationship, I feel like their relationship was very much besties. They were best friends when they were like together romantically as well. Yeah, it is interesting because, I mean, I think it just shows that Selena doesn't trust anyone, you know?
Sure.
Because I don't think her life has felt safe for her ever. And so that's probably what led to that. It does make me kind of sad because I like the idea of their relationship flourishing that way. But yeah, I don't know. Weird.
Cool.
I read romance novels a lot. There's definitely more romance in this than anything you normally read. I
For
say
sure.
this because I have now read some of the books that you read. How did you like it?
I liked it a lot. Found it to be very exciting. I really liked it. You know, still very YA focused.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, there are, they do have sex for the first time.
Illusions,
Not even an illusion, they do.
They do. Yeah, well,
They
I mean,
do,
you're not like in the scene.
But you're not in the scene.
Yeah.
No, it's
it.
very much the movie of like, they close the door, it cuts to black, etc., etc.
romance, if you will.
Exactly. There you go. But I really found all of it to be fun, really exciting, super romantic, which is fun. It's not something I read a lot. Yeah,
It's basically all I read. So
it's exciting. It was really nice. I liked it a lot. It was fun how passionate it was because it's very teenagers' first love. Well, not first love, but you know, when you're 18. Or I mean, Kale's maybe in his early 20s. But anyway, we're all legal. So it's it was I found it to be a lot of fun. Also with Dorian's moping in the background, kind of as like
boy.
But yeah, it was great until she tried to kill him, which I didn't love.
Do you wanna? What do we rate it?
Yeah, let's rate it.
Again?
This, I mean, the obvious thing is crowns. The obvious I think is crowns, but that feels almost cheating because then that's 2 books in a row in which I've taken a word that's in the title and used that as the rating.
I don't think we have to be cool about it.
I mean, we're not cool in any way about anything, but fine. Okay, I would give this an easy 4. This is, I think, as I said, a step up in basically every conceivable way. I had some problems with it, but I really genuinely enjoyed this book. I think it's a great second entry. I think the fact that not only does it raise the bar on basically everything, it also has a very compelling ending in which there are some really big reveals, even if you may have seen them coming, and also the promise of we're taking you to an entirely different place in this world that you have never seen before, which based on the little amount of world building we've gotten so far, I'm really excited about. So I can't wait to see what happens in the 3rd book. And what would you give this book?
Oh, 4.
4?
Easy 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not 5?
It's hard for me to rate it because I know what's coming, and there are books that I would rate higher than this book. So I guess that's kind of an unfair rating, but...
Sure. I think
I do remember it taking me about... I think after I read, because I did the same journey you did, which I did 1, 2, prequel. Yeah. And once I got to the prequel, I remember, like, I was in. Like, so in, I couldn't look back. And so I do feel like this book was still kind of below 5.
Sure.
For me.
I'm in.
I said, would you continue reading this series had it not... It wasn't enough for this channel.
I think it's very obvious. Yes, a very obvious yes for me. Again, I feel very confident that I must have read at least the 3rd book because I can't imagine a world where I read the 2nd one and it was such an improvement on the 1st and I didn't continue.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess that I read the 3rd one, but I remembered nothing from the 2nd book. I didn't even remember Nehemia died. So I doubt I remember anything from the 3rd, assuming I got that far. But yes, absolutely. I'm very excited to jump into the prequel book and then into the 3rd in the main series. Well, those are our thoughts on Crown of Midnight. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are my opinions all really stupid? Let me know in the comments down below. Did we miss any of your favorite or least favorite parts of the book? Please let us know. Yeah, favorite characters.
Team Dorian.
Yeah, are you Team Kale or Team Dorian? Everyone's Team Fleetfoot. I think I am actually Team Dorian now after being Team Kale after the 1st book, just because I like Dorian so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this, please subscribe to our channel and join us on our next adventure.